Welcome to Storytime Hub, the place where stories come alive. Here, you'll find everything from heart-racing horror and mysterious thrillers to magical adventures and emotional tales. If you love stories that make you feel, imagine, and escape, you're in the right hub. So sit back, relax, and let the story begin. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Storytime Hub for more amazing tales every day. The town of Ravenswood had always been a whisper on people's tongues. Small, old, tucked away from the bustling highways of modern life, it carried the scent of forgotten legends and tragedies no one dared repeat aloud. Travelers didn't stop here, and locals rarely left. The streets were narrow, the air often damp with mist, and at the center of it all stood a mansion that had long since become a shadow in everyone's memory, the Holloway House. Lila Bennett, 23, wasn't a believer in ghosts, curses, or stories told in trembling voices around campfires. She was practical, studious, and too curious for her own good. After the death of her grandmother, she discovered a letter tucked into the folds of an old diary. If you wish to know who we are, Lila, you must go to Ravenswood. The Holloway House has waited long enough. The letter was dated 20 years ago, so Lila, with nothing to lose and a stubborn hunger for truth, packed her bags and took the long drive to Ravenswood. The town greeted her with silence. The streets were nearly empty. A stray cat darted under a rusted car, and the mist clung to her like a warning. She asked for directions at a tiny convenience store where the old man behind the counter froze when she mentioned the Holloway House. "You don't want to go there, miss," he muttered, not looking up from his counter. "That house, it doesn't let people go." But Lila smiled politely, thanked him, and left. Warnings never stopped her. The Holloway House stood at the edge of town, framed by twisted trees that seemed to lean away from it in fear. Its tall spires and rotting wood gave it a skeletal appearance, as though the house itself had been drained of life. Yet, when Lila stepped closer, she noticed something strange. The faintest glimmer of light flickering in one of the upstairs windows. Her heart quickened. Someone was inside. The door creaked as she pushed it open, the scent of mildew and dust filling her lungs. The grand hallway stretched before her, lined with portraits whose eyes seemed to follow her every move. A staircase, broken at the top, spiraled upward like a warning finger pointing to the heavens. Lila whispered to herself, "It's just a house, nothing more." But then the whisper came. A faint, almost playful voice danced in her ear, though no one stood beside her. "Welcome home, Lila." The air inside the Holloway House was heavy, as though time itself had thickened into dust and shadows. Lila's footsteps echoed across the warped wooden floorboards, each creak a protest. Her lantern flickered, throwing shapes on the walls that almost looked like people. The whisper came again, "Upstairs. Come upstairs." Her spine stiffened. She spun around expecting someone to be behind her, but there was only the grand hallway with its decaying chandeliers and walls lined with peeling wallpaper. The portraits of Holloway ancestors glared down at her, their painted eyes glinting with disdain. Lila shook her head. "It's just the wind. Old houses make noises." But deep down, she didn't believe it. She found herself climbing the staircase, her hand trailing the banister, cold with rot. The light in the upper window had vanished, but still she felt pulled toward it. Each step seemed longer than the last, stretching into an eternity. Halfway up, she froze. A child's laughter echoed faintly, high-pitched, sweet, but twisted by distance and emptiness. "Hello?" Lila called, her voice trembling despite her effort to sound firm. No answer, only silence. Then, suddenly, a door down the hallway slammed shut. Her instincts screamed to run, but curiosity dragged her forward. She followed the corridor, the faded carpet muffling her steps. When she reached the door, she pushed it open carefully. It was a nursery. Dusty toys lay scattered on the floor, and a broken rocking horse faced the window. A cracked doll sat upright in a small chair, staring at Lila with painted eyes that seemed too alive. The air smelled faintly of lavender, like old perfume. On the wall, written in faded chalk, were words that made her blood run cold. "We're still here." Lila stepped backward, her lantern trembling in her grip. That's when she saw her. A girl, no older than 10, stood in the corner. She wore a white nightdress, her hair tangled, her skin pale. Her eyes were wide and glassy, but there was no malice in them, only sadness. Who are you?" Lila whispered. The girl tilted her head. For a moment, she didn't speak, and Lila wondered if she was a trick of the light. Then the girl's lips moved. "My name is Eliza. You shouldn't have come here," Lila's heart hammered. "Why not?" "Because the house doesn't let go," Eliza said simply. Her form flickered like static on a broken screen. "It feeds on the lonely. On those who search for something they've lost." Lila swallowed hard. "Then why am I here? Why me?" Eliza's eyes softened. "Because you're part of us." The words struck her like ice. No, I'm not." The girl only pointed toward the window. "Look." Lila turned. Outside, the mist had thickened, swallowing the town. But through it, she saw something impossible. Shadows, dozens of them, standing just beyond the fence. Men, women, children, all staring silently at the house. Their faces blurred, their bodies trembling as though caught between this world and another. "The Holloway House keeps souls," Eliza whispered behind her, "and once you enter, it marks you." Lila's breath quickened. She stumbled back from the window, clutching her lantern like a shield. "No, I can leave. I can leave whenever I want." The girl's expression was almost pitying. That's what they all said. The door behind Lila slammed shut. The lantern flickered violently, plunging the room into near darkness. She turned, fumbling at the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Then the whispers began again. This time, it wasn't one voice, but many, layered, echoing, overlapping in a cacophony of pleading, laughter, anger, and sobs. "Stay. Forever. Home." The doll on the chair toppled over, rolling across the floor with a hollow thud. The rocking horse creaked forward once, twice, moving on its own. Lila squeezed her eyes shut, forcing herself to breathe. This isn't real. This isn't real. But when she opened her eyes again, Eliza stood inches from her face, her glassy eyes wide. "If you want to live," the girl whispered, "you'll have to set us free." Lila fled the nursery, the door flying open as if released by unseen hands. She didn't care how. It was her chance. She ran down the hallway, the whispers chasing her like hounds. Her lantern threw wild beams of light over the cracked walls. She didn't stop until she reached the library. The heavy oak doors slammed behind her, muffling the voices. Her lungs burned as she leaned against the door, trying to steady her breath. The library was vast, lined with shelves that stretched to the ceiling, sagging under the weight of ancient tomes. A grand fireplace stood cold at the far end, above which hung a portrait of a stern man with hollow eyes. Lila forced herself forward, scanning the shelves. Something in her gut told her the answers were here. One book, left out on a dusty desk, caught her eye. Unlike the others, its leather cover was uncracked, almost new. The title, embossed in fading gold, read, "The Covenant of Holloway." Hands trembling, she opened it. Inside were names, page after page of names written in careful script. She flipped through until she found one that stopped her heart cold. Margaret Holloway Bennett, her grandmother. The entry was dated 1962. Beside the name was a single word, promised. Lila's mouth went dry. Her grandmother had known this place. She had made some sort of pact with it, and now somehow it had reached out for Lila. The whispers stirred again, softer this time, curling around her like smoke. Finish what she could not. Her hand shook as she turned the page. There was a passage written in a different hand, almost carved into the paper. To break the covenant, the fire must return. Burn the heart, and the house will fall. Only then shall the voices rest. The heart? Lila whispered aloud. The fireplace crackled suddenly, though no one had lit it. The flames flared high, and for a moment Lila thought she saw faces writhing in the fire, dozens of souls crying out. She understood then. The heart wasn't a literal organ. It was the core of the house, the fire that kept it alive. "Eliza," Lila said into the empty room, her voice steadying, "is this what you wanted me to find?" The child's voice answered, faint but clear, "Yes, but you must be brave. The house won't let you." A loud crash shook the library as books flew from the shelves. The whispers turned to screams. Shadows thickened at the corners of the room, stretching like claws toward her. Lila grabbed the book, held it to her chest, and ran. The Holloway House groaned as though it sensed Lila's defiance. The walls trembled, dust rained from the ceiling, and the whispers sharpened into screams. She clutched the covenant book tighter, her lantern swinging wildly as she sprinted down the endless hallway. The staircase loomed ahead, but now it seemed longer, twisting impossibly into shadow. Figures crowded the banister, blurry forms of men, women, children. Their mouths opened, wailing in silence. They reached for her, hands grasping, desperate. "Let me go!" Lila cried, pushing past them, but their fingers were like cold air. They weren't stopping her. They were begging. The voice of Eliza rose above the chaos. "The fire, Lila! Burn the heart!" She staggered toward the grand parlor, where the fireplace still roared with unnatural flame. The heat was suffocating, the air thick with ash. The faces writhed in the fire, their eyes wide with terror. But when they saw her, their screams turned to pleas. "Help us! Free us!" Her hand shook as she opened the book again. The last page was blank, except for one line that bled across the paper like ink still wet. "Sacrifice binds. Courage breaks. What do I do?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "Tell me what to do." The flames surged and the house shrieked, its very walls twisting as if alive. Eliza appeared beside her, her pale face glowing in the firelight. "You have to burn it," the girl said. "The book. That's the heart. The covenant keeps us here. End it, and we go free." Lila looked at the book in her hands, the only connection to her grandmother, the only proof of her family's past. If she burned it, she would lose everything she came for. Her throat tightened. "And if I don't?" Eliza's glassy eyes filled with sorrow. "Then you'll stay. Forever." The shadows behind them rose higher, forming into monstrous shapes. The whispers howled, twisting into rage. "She is ours! Promised! Bennett blood belongs here." The fire flared so hot it blistered her skin. Lila's heart pounded in her chest. She thought of her grandmother, of the letter tucked in the diary. "If you wish to know who we are." Maybe her grandmother hadn't meant knowledge. Maybe she had meant strength, a chance to end the curse. Tears stung Lila's eyes as she lifted the book. "No more," she whispered. "You don't get to keep them. You don't get to keep me." With a cry, she hurled the covenant into the fire. The flames exploded, roaring up the chimney with a thunderous sound. The house shook violently, portraits crashing from the walls, glass shattering in a chorus of destruction. The screams rose higher, then broke into something else. Laughter, sighs, voices of relief. The shadows dissolved into light. The faces in the fire smiled before vanishing like smoke. Eliza turned to Lila, her form growing brighter, her nightdress shimmering like sunlight on water. "You did it," she whispered, her voice soft, no longer hollow. Lila fell to her knees, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Are you free now?" Eliza nodded. "All of us." She leaned closer, her small hand brushing against Lila's cheek, warm for the first time. "Thank you." The girl's form dissolved into golden light, rising upward until nothing remained but a gentle warmth in the air. The fire went out. The house gave a final groan, as if sighing in defeat, before settling into silence. When Lila staggered outside, dawn was breaking over Ravenswood. The mist was gone. The house, once looming and dreadful, now looked like nothing more than a ruin, empty, powerless. In the distance, she saw the townsfolk gathering at the edge of the road, their eyes wide with wonder. Many of them had tears streaming down their faces. They knew. They felt it. Generations of whispers had ended. Lila smiled faintly, exhaustion washing over her. She had come looking for answers about her family. She had found something greater, peace, not just for herself, but for all who had been trapped. As the sun rose higher, she whispered to the morning air, "Goodbye, Grandma. It's finished." The wind carried her words gently away, and for the first time in decades, Ravenswood was quiet. Though haunted by shadows, Lila chose courage over fear and freed countless souls, including the legacy of her own family. The Holloway House never whispered again.